Good afternoon. This session is on advancing gender and disability inclusion in the global south. Youth4Jobs, the organization of which I founded, has been releasing a series of booklets on women entrepreneurs. The first was women entrepreneurs in India. The second was women entrepreneurs with disabilities in South Asia. And today, the third one is on Africa. So we're going to start by showing you a short video. Youth4Jobs works on the much neglected intersectional issue of women with disability livelihoods across India. In partnership with the Zero Project, we are building a global network that amplifies their voices and achievements. Our mission is simple yet powerful, to shine a light on real-life stories of women who have faced incredible challenges and yet carved paths to independence. These stories carry globally the I can message of possibility, hope, and resilience. Every year, Youth4Jobs brings forward these inspiring stories of entrepreneurs with disabilities. Our booklets are celebrated globally, featured by the Zero Project at the annual conference in Vienna. From invisible to visible, Women Entrepreneurs in Africa is the third in this series, following editions from India and South Asia. Capturing these stories from Nigeria, Kenya, Botswana, Lesotho, Uganda, and South Africa was no easy task. From navigating time zones, translation challenges, and limited network access, to digging deep with research, the journey was as demanding as it was rewarding. And the results are extraordinary. These stories inspire, uplift, and remind us that determination knows no limits. So pick up your phone, scan the barcode, grab your copy right away. And who better to have a discussion on this topic of women with disabilities who are entrepreneurs than Irene, who's the founder of InABLE and the organizer of the amazing Inclusive Africa conference. So Irene, welcome, and let me straight away begin by asking you, we find that these intersectional issues like women with disabilities are ignored in most countries. In the work which we do on the field, we find even women have negative attitudes towards women with disabilities, which prevents them getting into networks and getting their government entitlements. It'd be really interesting for us to understand your perspectives.
Thank you so much, Mira, for having me this afternoon. I think when it comes to women with disabilities, it's a subject that has not really been addressed, especially in the continent. Of course, there has been a focus on women and girls across the board, but really to zoom in on girls with disabilities or women with disabilities, it's definitely a space that needs more attention. And when it comes to stigma is across the board. And what you'll find is that it's sometimes just based on not believing someone is capable of something. And I'll give an example of one of the beneficiaries of the work we do, especially Inclusive Africa Conference, is called DJ Wiwa. And one of the things she was talking about is how when she goes to the bank, she makes her own money doing her DJ work, but when she goes to the bank, she has her own bank account, but they insist she has to have a caretaker or an assistant with her. But the point is, it's her bank account, it's her private information. Why don't you just address DJ Wiwa by herself and let her run her own bank account? She might not want to share her information with anyone. So there's definitely a tendency not to think that maybe a woman with disability is not capable or is not safe enough, so we tend to overprotect. But I think there's an opportunity to really speak to the women and know what do they want. You know, it's not necessarily us guys bringing in our insecurities and being overprotective. So when I look at having to share my bank account information with anyone, it's a big no-no, but it happens all the time. So that's one of the issues that she was raising that's a big problem for her. Another issue she raised is when she goes to a bank to get a loan, she's given a list of requirements, and she follows, this is the list of requirements that everybody gets. But as soon as she submits the information, she keeps going round in circles because suddenly there's another request, then another one, and then she's declined, only to realize it's because they don't think she's really trustworthy. I can't trust you to pay back this loan. So it's interesting to sort of listen and see where the biases are and sort of figure out how do we help the general public, when they look at a woman with disability, to see her for who she is and her capabilities, instead of the things that we think in our mind are the weak spots.
So well said, Irene. In fact, if you look at the larger issues and challenges in setting up enterprises, one is access to funds, which we spoke about, but the other issues like access to skill, access to education, all these challenges seem to be common both in Africa and in India. In fact, one of the issues which I've been talking to with various stakeholders like the banks is that should we actually create a disability fund for women with entrepreneurs, because you don't seem to get funding resources for them because everyone believes that they can't, you know. And you also have to have that small element of risk. So can you tell us some of the stories from your experience of access to skills, you know, access to markets, which women struggle with?
Yeah, and part of it, just even from listening to you, is like for financial services that you're talking about, is because sometimes the products that exist in the market do not really address the needs of women with disabilities. So I think that if banks are going to offer loans to women with disabilities, have a sit down and co-create a fund that actually works for the women. Set timelines of payment based on what works for the women, because then if they are part of the process, you will understand them and they will be able to repay back the money. But the problem is that we always use the traditional methods that every one size fits all, everyone, this is the process we follow. So I think for me, there's a need for that. In terms of skills training, education, let me take a step back. We run a program for blind children and we teach them digital skills. That's our primary work. And one thing we've seen over the years is that as they start from the lower level grades, you could start off with 100 girls in first grade, but as you go to the higher level grades, the girls begin to disappear. They begin to disappear. By the time you get to the 8th grade or into high school, the number of girls compared to the boys has flipped. So if initially the girls were more, now it's the boys who are more than the girls. So there's a tendency for girls to drop off. And part of it is also families sometimes need more education on really believing in girls with disabilities, that yes, they can succeed, yes, they can find work, please keep them in school. So there's a bit of that that's definitely needed. But in overall, there's definitely, for those who are youth and they're older girls or women, there's definitely a lack of digital skills. And we are living in a digital world. So that means we're expecting them to thrive in a digital economy. They don't have digital skills. They don't have access to the technology itself. So I think there's a need to invest in that space to be able to help girls to participate in the digital economy.
Absolutely right. I think this access to digital skills is completely lacking in rural India at the grassroots, much more so for women with disabilities. But obviously in this space, innovations are needed. And the Zero Project Conference, the focus is on building bridges between innovations of two countries. So I was just wondering if, for example, Youth4Jobs, we've just set up the Center of AI for the grassroots, in which we've just developed 4 products which would have tremendous, they're light, simple products, which we know would have tremendous applications for Africa too. And there would be other innovators in Africa whose products would be good for us. So how do you build this Asia-Africa bridge, Irene?
So that's interesting, and especially when I think about India, I think we are sort of in the same economic conditions. But the one thing that's important for us to note is that we have to be part of the process. Sometimes it's difficult to just uproot a product from one area and it's going to work in another environment. So being part of the process, of the development process of feedback, getting user feedback on some of these products. Because as I said, it might work smoothly in India, and then you bring it to Kenya and things don't work out. Or even it succeeds beyond your wildest imagination. So I think there's a need for engagement with the local community and to really get the buy-in, but also to get user feedback to understand, do you need to make modifications, or is this just a very perfect application for the community? And then it's really just about collaboration. You have to do it together with the local community. I think that's really, really critical. And when I think about Inclusive Africa, that's what we're trying to do, is build bridges between the international community, the local communities, even just within Africa itself. Because there are all these countries in Africa, and some of us, we are very far apart. If I think where Nigeria is and where Kenya is, or Cote d'Ivoire, there's a difference. So how do we make sure that we are able to share knowledge between communities, even just within the region, and even just within every country by itself? Because it's transportation and everything else is not as available as you might find in the first world. But there are means and ways we can share knowledge internally and externally.
Yeah, I think the issues are the same because of the size of our countries, But interestingly, another question which I wanted to ask you is the complete absence of role models of, entrepreneurs who are women with disabilities. Each time we bring these booklets, we really research and see, can there be one person who's like a role model for the sector? So would you like to speak on that?
No, that's an interesting one, because everyone would love to have a role model. It makes a big difference. So I think what's important, and especially for women with disabilities, they've not had the stage in a very long time. They've never really quite existed. So I think we have to consciously make an effort to highlight the work that's being done by women with disabilities. Women run the world. Yes. Men can say anything, but women run the world, please. Yeah, so anyway, so that means women with disabilities run the world, right? So we need to highlight the initiatives they have, what they're doing. And that's what we do at Inclusive Africa Conference. We bring them in as innovators if they have innovations. We put them on leadership panels. They moderate sessions. They participate in sessions. They provide entertainment. We highlight their capabilities, because once they come to Inclusive Africa multiple times, the sky is the limit. And some of them have come in as creatives who perform, and then the next time, there's a private company that's hosting an event, and they're hired to come and do entertainment. So what I'm saying is, we have to continue showcasing, highlighting, and celebrating the work that women with disabilities are doing. And this is so that we can see their capabilities, but also we can join together and be able to move the agenda forward to have girls and women with disabilities at the forefront of the discussions as well.
Thanks, Irene. And one thing now I'm certain is that with you and the InABLE Africa Conference, with Youth4Jobs and the Zero Project Conference India, together we will make sure that this intersectional issue of women with disability keeps high and is always highlighted, so that we can create good role models sometime. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mira.